Good morning to those in the West and good afternoon to those in the East. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are excited and delighted to be here with you today for the 2020 Silicon Valley Global Innovation Summit. I think we have a world-class agenda, fantastic speakers. Thanks for being here and really excited about today's agenda. We couldn't do what we do today without our partners. A big shout out to Commvault, DataStax, Globant, and Zerto. Please reach out to them when they reach to you and follow up and schedule a meeting so you can learn more about their interesting software solutions and services and perhaps find a new partner. So one of our partners is DataStax. DataStax is a company behind a massively scalable and highly cloud-native data platform built on Apache. DataStax gives users and enterprises the freedom to run data on a global scale with zero downtime and zero locked in. An incredible client base, including companies like Macy's, McDonald's, Safeway, Sony, Walmart. DataStax truly delivers transformational data architectures. And a shout out to Mark Taylor. Mark, the CEO of SIM International. Mark, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, thanks again for the invitation today. Always a great program and look forward to hearing the conversation today. We've got a lot lined up in the SIM organization across the country in our 40 chapters that's coming up this fall, and invite those particularly in the Bay Area to join Steve Gallagher and the team there that have built a great community. And thank you, Hunter, for the investment you're making in the Bay Area and the chapter and helping support them there as well. So reach out to us at simnet.org. We'll help you get connected with your local chapter and particularly those in the Bay Area. Thanks again, Hunter.
Great to see you. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
So it's something new at HMG, the HMG Marketplace. When the world shut down, we had this idea, I actually had the idea 4 or 5 years ago, was creating a marketplace reference center where you could meet our top tier A1 partner companies and schedule senior level meetings with their senior level executive management. Let's roll the digital asset, please.
Many tech leaders are struggling to find the right solution to their technical business problems. HMG Strategy has created the HMG Marketplace and Reference Center to connect tech leaders with subject matter experts from peer-vetted providers of critical services and hot new technologies.
The HMG Marketplace, think of it as a reference center, a library to find out more about our partner companies and then set up a meeting.
It's challenging for all of us that we can't be together at these events. You won't be meeting necessarily with a salesperson. You're going to be meeting with myself, our senior executive team.
This truly is a game changer. So you can learn more about the marketplace on the homepage at HMG. Click Marketplace and poke in there. And I think it really is a game changer. Very excited about that innovation. More to come on that. First up, we have Commvault discussing securing and protecting your sensitive data in the new norm. Hey, Aaron, tell us a little bit about Commvault, a little context of the company and the space that you guys are in.
Yeah, so we help people protect their data and understand their data and how it should be protected and really classify that. And the reason for doing that is because there are all sorts of threats to data, from machine failure to human threats to malware. And so we're all about helping people get that data back into action as quickly as possible. So that's our primary goal. And we've been doing it for many years and we're masters at it, really. And we've helped a lot of very large enterprise customers throughout the globe in their time of need. And we get a lot of positive feedback from our customer base because of that.
You know, Aaron, data is so important. All right, we realize that more than ever now in this innovation cycle we're in, right? And critically important to secure your data.
Yeah, it's so the trend, the ubiquitous trend in the industry, of course, has been digital transformation, and we all know why that's a good thing for businesses. The implementation is a little different, and we see customers in all sorts of phases. But there's a commonality in that cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, and that new speed of trying to deliver services, the agility of delivering services has accelerated things, right? And that has potentially increased risk, but it's more of the impact, right? So as people are delivering things more quickly, as the data is growing faster, and the velocity of that data often derived from that customer interaction, you know, if you have a problem, it's a bigger impact because you know, you're really digital. So we're looking to help customers understand that the increasing need to implement security and data security from day zero and help reduce that risk. And because the cost of it can be massive, you know, it can be over $100 million if you have an event from malware or a bad actor.
That's
as well
a huge
as all,
exposure.
Yeah, it is. And all that might be some of the larger events. If you look at papers from folks like Accenture, they're saying the average is between 2 and 3 million. So it's kind of crazy. And we helped a lot of customers back in 2017 when the non-Petya event happened, and that was really impactful. There was some massive outages, but that, as a company, we got boots on the ground. We got really involved. We helped customers sometimes with as many as 50,000 systems that were out of action overnight, and we helped them get back and help them restart their business. And that just started this whole concept with us of recovery readiness, which is, you know, what are our targets, our service levels to get the business back next time it happens? And what is the policy that controls that? How do we classify systems? And how do we actively measure and know that we can respond and get back in time, right? And that constant measurement and that constant readiness, if you get it right, you get yourself a peace of mind and a recovery readiness. And that's our goal. And it's a major talk track, you know, constantly these days.
It's an exciting time in our industry, right, Aaron? Probably, I think, the most interesting and engaging time ever. Talk to us a little bit more about this readiness concept and your 4-point model.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do is, you know, sometimes we have a lot of technology and the customers had a lot of choice, but we wanted to be able to give them a path, you know, something. We know that they needed some help. We know that they needed to have some quick wins, and that every time they iterated on that initial quick win that gave the business more security, it would improve the situation. So we came out with this kind of this recovery progression, and it works like this. And the first step is security, and I'll focus on this one because it's the most important step. Is you need to know that you have good data, right, and you can recover from it. And it's like going on a journey. You need to know where you're starting, or you can't map where you're going to, right? We need to know we have that data. And so we start on that security posture and make sure that you have data in all the right locations, the right number of copies, that you have it segregated, that you have applied things like least privilege access and segregated the access. You know, we see in many industries, regulators coming in and demanding that. Well, we were ahead of the game there. So you don't want one person to have access to the primary system and the copies of the system, or all the copies, right? You don't want that trust in the hands of one person. In fact, we can't have trust in IT as a policy anymore, or individuals. We have to move towards zero trust. So that security really is key. And the final thing that we have implemented is this kind of 4 eyes principle, that the real best way of achieving that zero trust is if we're doing anything which affects data, deletes data, changes a compliance policy, more than one person has to make that decision. We can't have one person with the right access being able to destroy something. We include more people in that decision. So I talked about that a lot, and the other three bits are a bit quicker, but I think that security really is the crux of it. After you know you have that data, you need to validate that you can use it and you can recover from it, right? And we're saying, you know, cloud is probably the best place because it gives you more options, more techniques, and you can test those different techniques. How fast are they? How much do they cost you? And you can start to understand how you can do that. And I like to think of it as like a professional boxer finding the right sparring partner who matches the physical attributes and the style of the upcoming opponent. Our opponent is some downtime caused by a threat actor or a malware, and we need to get ready for it. Once you have that, tested it and validated how you can recover, you know how to classify systems, because now you know how fast it is to recover, and you know how much it's going to cost you. And once you have that, you can do that classification. And that the benefit of that could be that you have a better recovery capability than before, and it's going to cost you less than the current system if you get it right. If you get it wrong, just lifting things off premise and putting them into the cloud can be costly. So you have to watch out for that. And then the final piece is to automate that testing and that recovery readiness? Can you automatically test that the systems can be recovered, that there's a routine that tests the application is there, that it updates a scorecard that you can show back to the business that shows these critical systems, class A, class B, however you want to, they've been tested and they're tested daily, weekly, whatever it is, automatically. They've got the green lights everywhere. And that is giving you that peace of mind that, you know, you've really improved your situation and that, you know, you can recover next time it happens. Because that's the kind of language you have these days. When will it happen next? So we know that we can get back and we're recovery ready.
That's great, Aaron. Thanks for sharing. So can you also share with us some of the requirements that clients are sharing with you in terms of what their most pressing data needs are right now?
Well, you know, so we know what the needs are of today, and we know what environments look like today. There's on-premise, there's virtualized, there's some footprints in the cloud. And we have, as I said earlier, we have customers that moved to the cloud 5 years ago. We've got people who've just moved to it today. But what we're looking at is, what does my IT strategy supporting digital transformation look like for the next 3-5 years? And they want to know that we as an organization are forward thinking, that we're working with all the other leading companies out there. And we have a plan to make sure that we can accelerate their plans, right? And that we're going to keep the data secure and they can continue to improve on what they have today. So that's the kind of thing. People are wanting to know, what about, not just about now, but what about 3 years and 5 years from now?
Got it. Thanks. So, you know, as you've been also understanding what clients in different industries are facing right now, particularly from a SaaS and cloud standpoint, how would you characterize some of the recommendations that you and other members of Commvault have been offering to them in the marketplace, especially as, you know, operations are effectively being run on the cloud at this time?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, and we're not the only ones saying this, it's true, is you're still the steward of your data. So absolutely all the tier one cloud partners, we know that they've got 5 nines and greater availability of the service, but there's all sorts of things that can happen to the data. So you're still the steward of that. And the data is in more places with SaaS and cloud platform as a service and things like Kubernetes and all those kind of things, right? So the great thing is, the ideal thing is to have a solution which covers the whole lot, can give you that one pane of glass and view into that, but gives you that people are looking for simplicity and agility and the mobility between clouds, right? So we try to deliver best in class in all the major clouds, and you know, we have, you know, strong partnerships with everyone, but we also understand that some customers want to know that they can take an application built on Kubernetes and move it from cloud A to cloud B and back again, or on premise onto an on-premise stack. So we're always trying to give everybody, you know, what they need to make sure that they're, you know, they're fit from a recovery readiness capability, but also, you know, if they want to take advantage of a better pricing model, mobility of the service could be a real advantage for them in the future.
Absolutely. That's great advice, Aaron. Thanks. So can you also offer some recommendations as to how organizations can benchmark and measure their performance?
Yeah, okay. So we, you know, what you want to look at is the cloud native services and what the software that you have offers, right? So sometimes simplicity is good because there's one way of doing it and you can repeat it, but sometimes that comes at a cost. So I think you've got to always look at the cost and the speed. So when we're talking about speed, we're often talking about recovery time, but we're also looking at recovery point. So how up to date the data is. But you've also got to, I recommend always looking at that cost element. And we're finding that with solutions that can use automation and the DevOps concept, the whole idea of infrastructure as code, then sometimes you can use the cloud for what it's really designed for as an operating model and call things on demand and deliver almost as good a speed on recovery point and recovery time, but at a dramatically lower cost. So those are the things that you should you know, it's not always about just measuring how simple something is. You've really got to look at that cost and decide if that's right for you.
Great stuff, Aaron. Thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your sponsorship and the insights you've shared with us. By the way, what are some ways that people can get in touch with you?
Well, I'm still a little old school on, I like email, amurphy@commvault.com, but you can look me up as Aaron Murphy, Commvault on LinkedIn. We put a lot of stuff on our website as well. So if you search for things like secure your data and secure your mission on commvault.com, you'll find some really good papers relating to the cloud aspects that I've been talking about today.
Excellent. Aaron, thanks so much for today. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot, Tom. Thank you.
So next up on the agenda, we have Emiliano Horcada, who's Global Head of Digital Transformation at Globant. Emiliano, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Tom. Nice talking to you.
So, you know, we've spoken before. Globant's doing some very exciting things. Can you share with us a little bit about your background? And for those people that are not familiar with Globant, a little bit about the company as well?
Yeah, for sure. So in Globant, we focus quite a lot on helping our clients to accelerate transformation and in all of the fronts, whether it's cultural transformation or technology transformation, or many times also methodologies. We are organizing what we call different studios, which are pockets of expertise. And those pockets of expertise range from a lot of knowledge on AI, data, experience design, mobile, and even gaming. So that cross-industry kind of approach help us take a look at the different problems from different industries and cross those strategies and kind of help accelerate transformation.
Excellent, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can you share with us a little bit about how consumer behavior has changed in 2020 with all the radical changes we've seen in the face of this crisis? What's happening with consumer behavior and customer experience?
Oh my goodness, right? It has been a year for changes in so many ways. And I think that the data speaks very loud. 80% of the people that have not had a digital purchase before have done that in the past couple of months. Not only that, but the level of fidelity of people who have been doing digital or e-commerce or digital purchases before, they are choosing, even when the stores are back being open and they have the ability to go to the stores, they're still choosing to go through the digital channel. The trust that the consumers have right now it's bigger, but at the same time, the expectations that they have on the ease of how to get to that, how to go through that buyer's journey is much higher. And at the same time, the expectation from the service that they're expecting from the brands have increased a lot. And we truly believe that this is also an opportunity for a new wave of innovation on many companies. And the focus that we need to put on customer experience have never been so dramatic in terms of the business impact. The data really shows that focusing and investing on customer experience will yield amazing results in 2 years to come. So it's really interesting.
What you're talking about hits right in the core wheelhouse at HMG Strategy in terms of our research agenda. We've never gone through innovative and disruptive times in such a short period of time ever. And in every C-suite now, it's reimagining the customer, reimagining business models. Talk to us more about how Globant can help there.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it there when you said that the merge between the business strategy and the customer experience. I think that before, in a few years before, there was this silo mentality in a lot of corporations that customer experience is one thing, that business models are another thing, and that even the technology and IT is a whole other track. And I think that what changed is right now we realize that there needs to be a more holistic approach to all of that. We need to incorporate knowledge of customer experience and business strategy and technology strategy all in the same place. Otherwise, we will suffer and we will not be able to provide the service that we want to our customers or our clients. And in Globant, we understood that many years ago, but we're still putting a lot of effort into providing services to our clients and to transform our clients or help transform our clients into achieving a more holistic strategy from business and from technology and touching all the customer experience, which is so crucial at this point, and particularly in 2020, right?
How do you do that?
Yeah, so we have quite a few artifacts and methodologies and tools. We develop our own framework for organizational transformation. We have a very strong culture of multidisciplinary services. We create what we call pods, which are these multidisciplinary structures. But we focus a lot on providing to our clients, helping them create a business strategy that is based on evidence, that brings data to the front, and that really gets them in contact with the customer, not just with what some stakeholders might feel. So we really make an effort into bringing the user and the customer to the center to really understand the power the data can bring to an organization and to transform not just the technology infrastructure, but the dynamics within the organization, the way we work, the way that we perceive our methodologies, and the way that we actually do the work, the products and services that we create.
People matter. How do you help with the organization shift?
Oh yeah, they do matter. And not only that, but a lot of the effort that we face within a process of transformation is dealing with that uncertainty, dealing with that change. We have seen that those processes of transformation are successful when the C-level is really engaged and when there's a common language created in the organization. We have created along the way different frameworks and methodologies that make the invisible visible. We created tools that allow for recognition of peers, for detection of leadership, that bring the data to the front. StarMeUp is one of we created a organizational system, basically, operational system for the culture to manage the culture. And we really believe that it's important to highlight and bring focus to making the invisible, the culture, the things that we can feel, but we don't know how to manage them. We really need to make those things visible, and these tools really help a lot.
Emmy, what types of companies will really thrive in this environment?
So from a couple of months ago, we were talking about exactly that question, and we started to answer that question with industries, right? And we said, okay, if the banking industry is going to thrive in this way, or the retail industry is going to thrive in this way, or potentially even the travel industry can start thriving in this other way, or regrow in this other way. But the truth is that it really doesn't matter your industry at this point, or more so after already been through the pandemic for a few months. What matters is the type of mindset and type of leadership that you have in your company. If you right now, in the middle of this storm, you're still wondering how to get everybody on remote working, you're losing time. You gotta get that done really quick, and you gotta start focusing on your customer experience. You gotta start focusing on how to provide value on a remote work for your customers, how to create new channels for providing that service, how to look or map the journey of your customer in a more holistic way, and how will the technology, what are the behaviors that you need to drive within your company to create more innovation. It's really not right now about just infrastructure. It's more about the strategy in the next few years and how to get on that new innovation wave.
And you probably have many happy clients. What do some of them say about you?
Oh yes, we do. And we're really happy about that. And one of the things that we are really happy is that we get to work in so many different industries. And we go from the entertainment industry, working with huge clients, and then we go from the oil and gas industry, the banking industry, and you have, you know, different mindsets there, right? And some are really used to working in multidisciplinary, mixing technology with design, and some have never heard of that. And I think one of the great things that they keep telling us, which is something that we're really proud of, is that we can integrate those voices, that we can educate, and at the same time, we get our hands really dirty. We are people that want to get to work, and we need to see results. So that opportunity to go from different industries let us cut to the chase and go straight to the point.
You know, in final closing comments, Emmy, a little bit point about what makes Globant unique.
I'm gonna just say what I love about Globant, and I think that our ability to go, as I was saying, to go to the chase and to mix design with technology and innovation in a really iterative and quick way, not spending a lot of time on this, you know, strategies that create this amazing PowerPoints, but don't really change anything. We want to change things. We want to really see impact, and we want to be smart about it, and we want to be actionable about it. And that's something that I really love about Globant, that we go into action and we're ready.
Excellent. Hey, Emmy, thanks for coming on the summit today. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Hunter. Have a good one.
Great to see you as well. Next up, we have Nancy Flores. Nancy is the EVP and CIO and CTO of McKesson Corporation, an amazing company with an amazing history.
Hi, Hunter.
Great to see you. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Where are you coming in from today, Nancy?
I'm coming in from Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Hopefully it's cool enough.
It's a dry 94 degrees.
Okay. Nicely said. Hey, yeah. What in your travel, as your career has evolved, what brought you to McKesson?
Oh yeah, it's you know, through my journey, I've spent most of my career in healthcare, and I took a short stint outside of healthcare, and you kind of don't realize what you miss until you leave it. And one of my passions is being able to solve a problem and make an impact. And so what brought me back to McKesson is just the role they play in the healthcare industry. And we're not the pharmaceutical company with a big blockbuster drug. We don't have, you know, this new innovative technology. While we do have that, we are core to making the healthcare industry run. And so everything we do has an impact to every patient in the healthcare industry. And that's really what drove me to come to McKesson.
You know, not many people really know the history of McKesson and how large the scale that you operate on is. Awesome. In the history, you're over 180 years old, right?
Right. We our company was founded in 1833. We're a Fortune 7 company. We have about 72,000 employees. A lot of people may know us from distribution, but we distribute the majority of the pharmaceuticals and hospital supplies to the country, Canada, and Europe. We're the third largest oncology managed care services in the country. We're the fourth largest pharmaceutical company or pharmacy in the US. We have 17,000 pharmacies across the US. So when you think about our current pandemic, we play a fundamental role, and technology is a big underpinning in each of those businesses for us.
You must work on massive scale, thinking through all of the various businesses and then how to execute against a wide range of priorities.
Yeah, scale's very important. Priorities and focus are very important. And when you think about what we're going through today in terms of our pandemic, we are playing a critical role. So what becomes really important is focus and priorities, and some of the fundamentals of how you run an organization around capacity planning, discipline, and execution become very important. Being down for a few minutes can cause thousands of transactions not to flow through and millions of dollars of revenue, but ultimately a huge impact on not being able to deliver PPE to critical areas of the healthcare system.
So can you also share with us some of the ways that you and your team, how you feel you've made an impact on the business and on patient outcomes, some of the work being done in IT?
Sure, sure. You know, I actually, it's interesting to start a company as COVID's happening. And since I've been here, the role the technology organization plays, I'm just so proud to be part of what they do. A couple of examples, as the pandemic started, understanding how we need to drive transactions and allocation of pharmaceuticals and medical supplies becomes critical. As we scaled, the business required us to think quite creatively as the dynamic supply chain changed, our supply sources changed, how we allocated supplies to the healthcare industry. We needed to come up with new creative ways on allocating product into the healthcare system. So that was fundamental, where my team innovated some new ways to actually drive dynamic allocation directly down to each sales area. That's one example. Another example is we saw our volumes in our PPE business scale at 70% overnight. So it was critically important that our operations team were able to scale our platforms to be able to accommodate that in a very short period of time. So those are two examples where flawless execution, operational excellence is just a fundamental core to what we need to focus on to make sure the business can run.
Interesting, thanks. So this is a bit of a hot seat question. So
okay.
Can you share with us what you see as you look back over your career, some of the best decisions you've made, along with some of the worst decisions you've made?
Well, should we start with the worst one? Because I have
however you want to approach it.
You know, I think the one comes to mind where, you know, we all have to make difficult decisions when we work within constraints of the business. A situation where it was deciding how we change our technology operating model in terms of how we source and what we do. And I had a senior leader that debated for about 4 hours what the right decision was. I allowed a more senior leader to influence the decision that I knew was not going to be a positive impact to the organization. And I allowed that to happen. I was too young in my career to take a strong stance. And what I learned from that, number one, age is liberating. But you know, the decisions you make, no matter who's influencing you, whether it's somebody that's more senior than you or somebody in another part of the organization, it all ties back to the integrity and the principles you need to live by. And so the decisions you make, you really need to know, you really need to believe they're the right thing to do when you can go to sleep at night. So that was probably the worst decision I made, is allowing somebody influence my decision making when I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. I think the best one, though, was moving to Texas and taking this job. It actually brought me back to what I love to do is, you know, I've always used technology as a means to solve a problem. I started my career not as an IT person, but as a statistician. So I've always been in this mode of using technology to solve a problem, and to be in a company that is so passionate about making a difference to patients in the healthcare industry, and knowing that technology is fundamentally critical to every piece of our go forward strategy, really motivates me. Really motivates me because we can make an impact.
That's great. And I'm sure that you also find ways to communicate the impact that your team members are having on patient outcomes and healthcare in general. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. When you look at what we do, my team plays a big role, whether it's the pharmaceutical solutions we provide directly into the pharmacy, whether it's how we connect all of our oncology practices that provide a third of the care to cancer patients in this country. My team is critically important to every oncologist to make sure they actually have the data and the information they need to provide the specialty care to those patients. So many examples around what my team does, and I'm so very proud of them, very proud of them.
That's awesome, thanks. So we're very excited, as you know, about our plans to host our inaugural Women in Technology Summit on October 26th. And we're absolutely thrilled that you'll be serving as one of the chairs for the event. We're very happy to have you on board with us. So, along those lines, I'd like to learn a little bit about, as you see it, what are the barriers that are facing women in technology leadership positions right now?
Yeah, do we have enough time? I'm not sure. No, actually, I think it's a wonderful time, just being a female in this industry for years. It's a great time. There's very positive elements to being a female, and many strong leaders, and not just female leaders, male leaders that are very big advocates of driving inclusion and diversity, which is how I think about it. But when I think about the barriers, these are just some thought-provoking statements that I think about, that I still see and observe. And as I've advanced, to me, it's really my role to help call them out in a positive way so we can change them. But it's the leadership style where a soft-spoken person, or long-winded answers, or having emotion in your answers is not viewed as positive. But you know what? Why can't we celebrate everybody's individual style? If you don't have a presence or voice, you'll get interrupted and spoken over. Those don't sound like big things, but they really silence, as somebody that doesn't have that type of style in a conference room or in a meeting. I think the other thing is, when I'm incensed when I hear things, we need a woman on the board, or we need a woman at an executive level, or I wish I could hire another woman like you. I think a lot of women would share the same point of view. I'm incensed when the focus and the view is talked about like meeting a quota or a goal. That still happens today. Each and every one of us who may not have the majority profile in a room doesn't want to be viewed as the token. We want to be viewed as equally competent and capable, and equally qualified for those roles. And I think my only one last thing is that when you think about it, I think about the importance of the role that every and white male privileged leader has to play to help this community. If you think about everybody here, somebody has a daughter, somebody has a sister, somebody has a mother. And there is the power of women working as one to help support and create that community. But it's even more important to work as an integrated community, men and female, to create equality across the board. So I'm very passionate about it in terms of helping educate that. And I would say it goes the other way too. My son is a nurse. So he has the opposite experience, where he's a male in a predominantly female environment. So we need to just drive diversity and inclusion across the board.
These are all such excellent points. And I know I've had conversations with other female leaders about that challenge that you cited initially about if you're too assertive, this could be viewed the wrong way. And that it's more important that we just embrace different personalities and leadership styles, as opposed to identifying them with people of certain genders or backgrounds, et cetera.
Yeah, the best advice one of my mentors gave me was just be you. And if they don't like you, then that's out of your control, and you can change the environment, but just be you.
Great advice. So what's next? What's next for you, Nancy?
I think what's next right now is really focused. We are so privileged and humbled as at McKesson to have been awarded the sole distributor to distribute vaccines for the country when a vaccine comes out. So we're very focused on scaling and making sure we get that running and running well. So there's a lot of work there. What I'm excited about, though, is in terms of the go forward strategy, the role I'm coming into has a huge opportunity to elevate technology in terms of our strategy. So when you think about how we can change the patient experience through solutions that allow us to get access to more patients, delivering digital channels so patients can have a different experience in terms of how they access their healthcare, learn about their cancer treatments. Those all have elements of technology. So once we get past this pandemic, and I know we are, you know, my organization, our focus, we're really excited about really shaping that technology strategy for McKesson.
What keeps you up at night?
Oh, I really want to make sure our technology is running flawlessly to deliver this PPE and vaccines for the next few weeks. But actually, you know, on a broader scale, what keeps me up at night is, you know, and I have a personal experience with systemic racism in the community that had just happened in Wisconsin. I lived there for 22 years. And when you think about it, one of the things I love about my current job is we are talking about the impact, the social impact, the systemic racism, and what does it mean to our employees? And to me, that's what keeps me up at night, because if you don't have an employee population, we have 73,000 employees, and the health and safety and their well-being is really important, not just in the short term, but in the long-term sustainability of what we do. So that's something we talk about right now. It's not technology specific, but it does affect how we think about technology. You know, how can we make an impact positively in these areas with technology?
Sounds great. Wow. What a great answer. Love the answer. Thank you very much for coming on the program and agreeing to be interviewed. We're going to roll right into the panel, right? Next up is reimagining the business and the future of work. Why don't we bring Paul Phipps on first? Paul's the Chief Experience Officer at Under Armour. Paul, many people probably told you this. Don't take my Under Armour away. I love my Under Armour. Good to see you, Paul.
I hope everyone's saying that. Thanks, Hunter.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Let's roll over to Coley Burt. Coley, welcome to the program.
Hi, Hunter. How are you?
I am great. Great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I even put on a collared shirt for you today, Hunter.
Hey, there you go. Love it. Tell us a little bit about Zerto and what makes you guys uniquely different in the market.
So Zerto, we sell under the term IT resilience. And like a lot of people have talked about today, there is a big concern around data availability, data access, where you place it. So Zerto is all about providing a simple, automated, efficient means of data protection. So we are aimed at making sure your data is always available and that your business and IT runs in a continuously available fashion, whether it's on-prem or to, from, in between the cloud. So put us rooted in DR and data protection with a pretty heavy cloud angle.
Well, so then you think about this unbelievable innovation cycle we're in now with this spike, with this new distributed work from home environment. What are the problems that you're seeing cross industry, across your clients?
You know, I think the biggest thing for us that we have seen, I mean, we're always obviously out espousing the benefits of modernization, digital transformation, and trying to gain efficiencies when it comes to how you protect, restore, recover data. So what we have seen through this pandemic is that, I'll call it this way, things that I'll describe as systemic risk that maybe previously were sitting in the business that people knew were there, but it was like, well, I don't really need to deal with it. It's either too costly, it's too difficult to change. Maybe it's deemed as low risk when it comes to either data protection or disaster recovery. Those things were left alone. Today, everything's being reviewed. So I think that for us is a really big thing as we listen to customers around what are your priorities? What's that mean if you're distributed? How do you want to, as Aaron was saying, all the things around security of data, what's your security posture? How do you have a recovery plan? That's what we listen for, and we really want to make sure that we provide a very efficient way, either people and process, for our technology to deliver on that outcome of continuous uptime.
Great. Have you seen any positive changes with leadership style in this pandemic?
You know, it's interesting. I think when we talked the last time, we were pretty early in and we were talking about that. And very early in this, it was all about crisis management, right? You were leading from a crisis management position, people safety, work from home, dealing with that, a lot of empathy and understanding. I think now, as I sit here, the leader of a pretty sizable organization, I'm really concerned about fatigue and burnout. This extended work from home is really creating, even for leaders, we as leaders are going through the same thing. The organization I lead is a very social organization who likes to be out and speaking in front of all of you and talking. So, dealing with that and how you bring people together in creative ways. But I really believe that this pandemic has caused leaders to be much more empathetic or more in that transformational leadership style, which I think is a more modern way to lead people, particularly when you're dealing with so much change and so much uncertainty in the day-to-day. So I actually think this has caused leaders to reevaluate and get better and be better leaders for the people that they have the privilege of leading.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that point. Really would. Stay with us, Coley. We'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Deb, we have Deb Monroe from El Camino Hospital. Deb, welcome to the summit.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Great to see you again. So tell us, give us a little context, a little update. What's on your plate now, say 5 months into this pandemic, and what are you thinking about in the near future?
Absolutely. So we were highly virtualized in our environment. So moving to remote work was very easy for us. It wasn't really a very difficult transition. Our challenge was taking care of patients beyond the bricks and mortar of our organization. So in other words, patients couldn't come in for their visits to see their provider or even come into the ED. So we were providing virtual visits as quickly as we could. We're also doing things like pop-up clinics out in the community to do COVID testing. So I think our challenge was going out of the bricks and mortar of our organization and providing care out in the community, dealing with connectivity issues, dealing with all sorts of things, and really we call it care now. Wherever you are, we're going to provide care for patients. So our bigger challenge was how to connect patients and physicians together remotely. And then also, as you can imagine, our patients that were very seriously ill could not have visitors. And if you can imagine being in a near-death situation and your family cannot visit you, we were putting iPads in patient rooms so they could actually talk to their family members. So those types of things have been near and dear to our hearts.
Oh my God, what an amazing story. And so you had to obviously go digital into telehealth, right?
Immediately, the CEO said, we want to have virtual visits tomorrow. And luckily I was on a road path, on a path to do that. But last fall I was trying to select a virtual visit vendor, and virtual visits were about 1% or 2% of all clinic visits. And I could not get synergy from the CEO and others to really get supportive of that. We finally moved through it. But you can imagine being innovative in the past really helps us during crisis. And having that thought of virtual visits, we were able to turn the dime very quickly. So, innovation is always going to help us during crisis events.
When you think of leadership challenges, what did it take a lot of courage to overcome for you? And what were you thinking about?
It was very challenging. Just knowing what the right thing was to do and persevering, that's part of my DNA. And so, I engaged the right leaders in the industry to talk with our leaders, and we had some very good discussions about virtual visits and where that would, kind of be a market differentiator for us in the future, and that helped us get over that hurdle. And luckily, we were on a path when COVID hit. Great,
thanks. Back to Nancy. Hey, Nancy, welcome back to the program here. Thinking about leadership challenges for yourself, what keeps you up at night, and what do you think about relative to leading today into the next 3 months, let's say?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because this is I think early on I said it was interesting to join a company during COVID. And so the luxury of coming on board into a company, learning your organization, visiting sites, learning the business, that's kind of been put on hold for a while. So what keeps me up at night is we've had to make some swift decisions similar to Deb. We had to launch telehealth overnight. We had to make some swift changes in terms of how we delivered virtual work environments to over 600 call centers that provided specialty care to oncology cancer patients, where if they didn't have connectivity for a day, that impacted their treatments. So as a leader, what kept me up at night is really being new to the company and learning how to trust my team and their decision making, while encouraging them we're a very disciplined organization in thoughtfulness, how we make decisions, which can be slow at times. So it was really balancing that trust of the leader, of new leaders that I was learning to know within months, but also helping and coaching them to make swift decisions to pivot quickly to be able to meet the needs of the business as COVID changed. I mean, some of these decisions we had to do overnight. We actually, in one example, is we weren't set up to do video streaming across thousands of employees across our network, but the instant our CEO presented to the White House overnight, that video showed up, and that, you know, you have to have a pretty awesome infrastructure team who can pivot and rechannel all that network traffic. So I'm just really, you know, in terms of leadership, how do you help and encourage your team to make those decisions in ambiguity? That to me was really important. So
fascinating stuff. When you think about decision making, data, facts, or gut?
A combination of both. Actually my style tends to be to listen, understand the data, but when you overlay it into the ambiguity of a situation, sometimes you got to go with your gut. You know, you just gotta. To me, my number one thing is when I have not listened to my gut, it hasn't always turned out the right way.
So what do you do when you go make that decision or don't make the decision, and your gut's saying to go left and you go right? What happens then usually?
To me, it's more, my belief, I am a big fan of being deliberate. And I'm a big fan of, you know, when you work with a team, you've got to have debate, you've got to have transparent and candid discussions. I think it's not about making the perfect decision, it's about making a deliberate decision and constantly, you know, validating along the way and being able to pivot. So, you know, there have been many, and I'm sure everyone can think of situations where you made that decision. You thought, well, maybe that wasn't the right one. We've got to adjust. I think it's more important to be very deliberate in how you go after a decision. And if it's slightly wrong, you adjust.
Okay, great. And then, I'll circle back to you here in just a minute. Thanks. Over to Coley. Coley, leading through a crisis is critical, right? Being successful at it right now and defining success is kind of interesting. Can you share your insights around how organizations can mitigate the impact of potential future issues or crises?
Yeah, and that's an area I love listening to our customers and our partners talk about that. I mean, I think we can all agree digital transformation is now the game changer. It's being driven quite aggressively. We've always talked about investing in future-proof, but I think future-proof has become very much in vogue because we now see the results. If you haven't previously invested in a future-proof environment, process, technology, whatever it might be, people, you won't be as resilient as you need to be when things are changing rapidly. And improvements in resiliency, efficiency, the ability to adapt is certainly there. So I think for me, as I look at it and listen, that we really begin to see that the business and IT getting aligned truly behind a digital strategy that they know is capable of delivering and executing on the key initiatives as things change. You need fast execution. You need to move at the speed of business. For me, I live in the data world. So to get to the speed of business, that means we need to move at the speed of data, which means how do you protect it? Where do you put it? How do you bring it back when there's an impact? And then Zerto is squarely focused on the resilience and the efficiency of data protection. And again, as I mentioned, it's a game where if we believe through our technology and the simplistic nature of our platform to deliver on-prem or cloud data protection, we then believe we can go change a process, which leads to more IT efficiency. So I think those are the really big things for me, that coming out of digital transformation, business and IT get aligned. They get behind a strategy and they can move fast and hit on the key initiatives and drive the business to where it needs to go very effectively. And while communicating to the people, here's what we're doing, here's how we're going to get there. There's no ambiguity. I like Nancy's comment about being very deliberate. And I think coming out of this, we're all going to need to be very deliberate in how we communicate, how we deal with these types of events in the future.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Coley. Hey, Paul, good to see you. When you think of this whole crisis, the pandemic that we've all been through, what are the leadership challenges that really stick out to you, and what are you leaning into now that you think is going to work relative to delighting your customers, gaining new market share? The whole CX area, Paul, is fascinating for all of us.
So for us, from a leadership standpoint, I love what the other panelists said. Of course, I blinked out there for a minute, so I apologize. But we're trying to figure out how do we take the clock speed that we work in now, after 6 months of working at home and accelerating a lot of digital initiatives. We believe internally that's because a lot of the physical walls have come down. We're a global company. We have offices all over the world, but we've seen the teams, their ability to collaborate together, leveraging the technologies that we have in place. How do we continue that, as we start to go back to work? I mean, we're trying, like everyone, trying to figure out when do we start opening up offices and those things, but really harnessing the learnings, the good and the bad. I think there was, a massive productivity bump that many of us saw in the first, call it 3 or 4 months. I would say in the last 2 to 3 months, we see a significant morale hit. And so it's how do we actually keep people engaged, identify those who are isolated, get them, really energized about the work that they're doing, and maybe get them together in smaller groups ahead. So I think there's a leadership challenge there as we go forward. I think for us also, it's recovering from the fact that, since January, a very large percentage of our business is in some form been shut down, starting with China, moving from east to west, and having our retail stores and our partner stores literally closed for a period of about 3 to 4 months, depending upon which part of the world you're talking about. And so now as those stores open back up and the consumer expectations and habits have shifted online, how do we make sure we're serving them in the right way and they're getting a great experience online in physical retail and in our partner stores? So to me, it's really, from a leadership standpoint, how do we get people back to work in the right way, carrying through some really great and valuable lessons, and also then making sure that we're serving our customers in the new way that they expect to be served.
What was the biggest challenge for you evolving from a CIO to the customer experience role?
Well, I mean, I think my journey has been a little bit of an evolution. I mean, I was, my first role was at Under Armour, heading technology and operations. And then for the past 3 years, I was the chief digital officer. So that was, a very commercial facing role, e-commerce and all of our app companies. And, for us, we just decided to take all the digital capabilities that we have, put them together so that we offer a series of products, our physical products, and then services, a lot of the digital services we offer through our apps, combine those, and then think about how do we create great experiences through those channels. So I think, that's a platform, that's a foundation of technology and technology capabilities, but very quickly orienting towards a consumer-led brand and company. So that's been a challenge for me, but it's been a great, fun ride, and I've learned a ton.
Is it working out for you? Because so much of it now is a great platform in the ecosystem, right, Paul?
It is. The interesting thing about coronavirus is we've seen a massive surge, and you guys have probably read about it, of at-home workouts and people, really diving into how they take care of themselves, both from a fitness standpoint and a willingness to engage with much more at-home content. So we've shifted a lot of, whether it's MyFitnessPal or MapMy, to really support those needs at home. To give you one example, in April, we started topping 1 million runs logged every single day, which is a massive spike in terms of people doing more and more. They're, engaging more in workouts, living a healthier lifestyle. And then on the nutrition side, very quickly in the ecosystem, we've seen people engage much more in nutrition plans that we offer in terms of how to live a healthier lifestyle. So I think we're at the epicenter from an Under Armour standpoint of, our mission is to make you better, and doing that through the ecosystem is really important. But to your point, leveraging the technology platforms and making the right investments have been key. And we're still, very early in our journey there.
Paul, I've always been a big fan of yours and of your company. So thanks for coming on the program today.
Thanks for having me.
Deb, over to you. Deb, when you think of kind of the lessons learned out of this whole pandemic and disruption or innovation that came as a result of the pandemic, how has it impacted your ability to deliver a world-class customer experience or patient care?
The COVID really required, I'm leading innovation for our organization. It just required us to move much more quickly, be much more agile. And, I think we talked a minute ago about it's okay, to have to course correct. Your gut tells you, or through your analysis, to move in a certain direction. And if it isn't the right approach, then to course correct quickly and be very agile and nimble. That's something our organization has been able to do. So I think, focusing on innovation is one of our key pieces, and how do we differentiate ourselves? As I mentioned, some of the larger organizations in our community, we're providing data to the county for COVID, which does help the county determine if you can open the county up for restaurants and for all sorts of services. And so data is so critical with PPE, as Nancy mentioned, and other items. And so analytics were so critical for that. But then, that helps lead us into how can we serve the community during this situation, such as the COVID testing for community members, which other organizations aren't providing. That's a real market differentiator for us, that we can go out into the community, serve the community, and actually get those individuals in our CRM, so then we can start serving them their healthcare needs in the future. So it gives you that opportunity, that little bit of that business opportunity that wasn't there before. So taking advantage of it.
Okay, and then, final kind of closing comments, thoughts with the group. Why don't we stay with you, Deb? Best time ever in your career to be in this situation, driving innovation and leading the tech initiatives. Are you grateful and happy?
I'm challenged, and I enjoy the challenge. It's hard work. I'm developing a digital front door app right now that is very customer centric and very much like a Starbucks model, and it's hard work. And there's a lot of resistance along the way. So I would say I'm persevering, and I love those challenges, but there are days where it's overwhelming. So I think take the good and the bad and roll it together. I like it.
Great. Thanks for coming on the summit today. Great to see you as well. And thanks for being a great fan and supporter. Hey, Nancy, final comments from you regarding where we are in this pandemic and the tech leader being a leader of innovation in the business?
Yeah, I think the one word is excited. It's taught me that I've always worked in big old stodgy companies, and we've always tried to be innovative. But when you go through a crisis, you really learn that the core capabilities is if you can mobilize an organization around a common outcome, you really can get stuff done. So excited about that. I think the one thing that has just been so powerful to me is just to really understand our employee and patient population and the sentiment they have around COVID. It's really taught me to be much more sensitive to some of the personal emotional barriers that have a big play in how we provide technology to them. So, COVID risk and COVID anxiety is very different for every individual. So it's really brought to light for us a huge sensitivity and empathy around how we provide technology based on that experience of one.
And you've been able to get massive things done in this crisis?
Yeah, I'm sorry, say that again?
Have you been able to get many things done in this crisis?
Absolutely. Things that were going to take 6 months took 6 days. Doing an upgrade that we planned for 3 months, we've got to have that ready to go for vaccines in 2 weeks. So for me, that's exciting to move fast and watch an organization shift and pivot like that is really fun to see. Great.
Again, thanks for coming on the summit, Nancy. Great to see you. Hey, Coley, final comments?
Yeah, Hunter, the last time you and I spoke, I think I mentioned that what I was most excited to see coming out of this was the evolution of IT and what we would learn. And as we sit here today listening to Nancy, Deb, and Paul, you can see in such a short time, I think the last time we chatted, it might have been April, we have moved so fast so far. And I live on the vendor side of IT. I've been in this side for a long time. And what I really like to see that's happening right now is the challenge of status quo. I think everybody on this panel has challenged status quo and has probably looked at every area of systemic risk that they have and how they need to mitigate that so they don't slow down. And, Zerto, with what we do around DR and data protection, driving continuous availability, we sit right in the middle of that. So for me, I think it's an interesting and amazing time to be part of this industry and to see all the evolution. Clearly there's people that are really suffering through it all, but I think everything that the panelists here are working on are going to make people better. They're going to help them be safer and be more resilient. And I think that's an amazing outcome, how technology can drive, the health and just kind of viability of the human race. So I'm very excited to be here and certainly look forward to challenging some more status quo.
Well, great to see you, and thanks for supporting us here today. Hey, Paul, final comments or remarks here?
I think I just build off the rest of the panel, Hunter, and say that I'm also incredibly excited with where the future goes. I think it's interesting that every panel member here has talked about, the consumer that they're trying to serve, in different industries. And I'm not sure that would have been the case, just 3 or 4 years ago, but I think it's a reflective of And certainly in our case, we've gone from being a brand-led to a product-led to now, trying to become a more consumer-led company. And I think digital and technology and, all of the capabilities that we all have to build for the next 10 years are going to be centered around that consumer and their experience, regardless of industry. So it's really a tremendous time.
Great. Paul, Deb, Coley, and Nancy, thanks so much for coming on the summit today. Great to see you all.
You too.
Thanks, Hunter.
Bye now.
Thanks.
Have a good day. Okay, next up, crisis in career, preparing for the next opportunity. It's a panel you don't want to miss. We have Renee Arrington, Tony Lang, David Morse, and Mark Ski. Hey, Renee, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you. Welcome. Nice to be here, Hunter.
Good to see you. Where are you coming from, Dallas?
I'm in Fort Worth today, but yes, same as Nancy, I'm in the 94-degree dry heat.
Okay. Hey, it's good to see you. Always, I'm a big fan of yours. What are you seeing out there in terms of the landscape?
It's been really interesting. We're seeing a little bit of an uptick in individuals who are seeking their next opportunities. So there has been a little bit of a shift in the market, but we actually have our fair share of clients that have retained us, obviously, to do interesting work for them. So, it's interesting. In fact, Pearson Partners just did a survey, a nationwide survey of how leaders are responding to the current crisis. And we had some pretty interesting results. I think it was 84% of our respondents felt like they were even as productive or even more productive in the current work from home environment, Hunter. So it's been very interesting.
Oh, fascinating. And in terms of searches opening up, what are you seeing in terms of opportunities?
Some really interesting things. We have a couple of CIO searches on our plate right now, obviously. We have some private equity work going on. August is traditionally in our industry a little bit slow just because folks are trying really hard to go away before school starts and they have to get the kids back to whatever normal is for them. And so typically September, a lot of work comes in and clients want things finished by the end of the year. So it's been okay. We're holding our own, as I say.
Excellent. Great. We'll circle back to here in just a minute.
Thank you.
Tony, welcome to the summit here in the program.
Hunter, how are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Great. Yeah, very good.
And you're coming in from probably sunny Northern California.
Well, it's not so sunny and it's a little smoky out where I am, although I think we've turned the corner slightly.
Oh, nice. Hopefully you guys are all safe.
Yep.
So what are you seeing out there in terms of the changing landscape post-pandemic and this next innovation leg that we're on?
Well, I think everybody realized, that technology is suddenly incredibly important. And we've heard from CIOs and others talking about this. The CIOs went from being, a key part of an executive team to being people that saved the company, have helped rethink the business model, have a bigger voice in the executive committees. And suddenly, we all know digital transformation has been dramatically sped up, but how are you going about your work? How are you as the CIO, communicating the message, properly articulating a vision of technology, for the senior executive? And underpinning that is, what are the big roles? Well, I think we all understand that data drives digital. So chief data officers, type of positions, really important. Chief digital officers, obviously CIOs, but that whole kind of what I call move to modern architectures and a modern way of imagining how your business gets run, from being, program and project centric to becoming, a program and project centered to becoming a product centered IT department, where you as IT are talking to your business partners and your ultimate end users, your consumers, and you are providing them with a set of products that make absolute sense and have a life cycle. So traditional IT is starting to think more like what I would call a software vending company. And I think it's a great and positive move toward the future.
Fascinating time, right?
Amazing time. This is, as you said, Hunter, this is a great time to be a tech leader in a company.
We'll circle back to you. Hold that thought. Next up, we have Mark Polanski. Hey, Mark, welcome to the program.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Hunter.
Good to see you. What are you seeing out there, Mark, in terms of the changing landscape of industry, what they want from their next tech leader hire?
So innovation and transformation and all things digital have been very top of mind in our work for a number of years. But as everybody has said, the acceleration to change has been breathtaking. And so speed and how to control speed, how to control ascent has become a checklist kind of requirement for CIOs and actually all tech leaders. To Tony's point, it's become part and parcel of our screening process. The other thing that's changed now is question number one, maybe question number two is, tell me what you did in the war. Tell me what you did during the pandemic. How did you reorganize? How did you redeploy? How did you keep your team engaged? How did you communicate? And how did you succeed? And we're looking for really solid answers. Okay to say I tried this and it didn't work. Okay, what's next? What did work? And were you able to use the word, the overused word, were you able to pivot during this very, very trying time?
Yeah, and Mark, you had to have a little bit of humility in the answer as well. So we're not looking for people who are like, yeah, I got it, no problem, because no one had it. So there's got to be a bit of humility in there, you know, where you said help to your team members, you know. Oh. I'm not sure who that is.
Right, there you go. Nice little jingle there. Hey, Mark, thank you, Tony. Mark, how important is communication and storytelling?
Well, storytelling has always been the best way to interview or to sell anything. You just in an interview selling yourself. The key question where that comes in is that tell me about yourself. I don't want a recitation of the resume. I read the resume. I want to know who's the person behind the resume, why you've made the choices you've made. Which were the right choices, which were the not so right choices, but telling the story of who you are. So we use the wonderfully visual example of interviewing someone, sitting across from someone and saying, well, tell me about yourself. And you're expecting, well, I did this, then I did that, then I got this degree and that degree. But the answer comes back is, I've climbed all of the 7 highest peaks on Earth. Right there, you know more in 10 words than you probably would in 15 minutes of resume. So we haven't all climbed all 7 peaks, but tell us something interesting about you. Tell us what makes you special, what makes you different, what has made you successful. That's what I want to know.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Well, we'll circle back to you. Hold that thought. Next up is David Morris. David is the founder and chairman and CEO of Hyper Solutions Group. David.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Hunter.
Good to see you. You're definitely the outlier here with the background and all. It's good. Great job. You make positive change with Hyper Leadership, right?
Yeah.
Tell us what's different about your company and the Hyper Leader.
Yeah, well, I started out in executive search, and what we've focused on at Hyper is when an organization is going through a big change, and we've been at this for a number of years, so it now just so happens that change is happening everywhere. But if there is change, and specifically within technology, it's usually a big project. So there's a $50 million plus digital transformation, we've all heard this, that an organization is trying to make, or more recently updated terms to that, but there's some big change. We'll work with the executive sponsor of that to help make sure they got the right team and get ahead of some of the misalignments that can derail these projects. I think a couple of the most relevant things, Hunter, just in our discussion the other day, to share with the audience, is that we have seen a lot of displacement over these last few months. When this level of change occurs, the question is, who has the authority at the end of the day in the organization to really make the decisions, the budget decisions, people decisions? And love to hear from the other panelists here, but we have seen both with our private sector, public sector clients, we are seeing that it may come from outside places. A governor may all of a sudden no longer have confidence in the head of an agency and fire them, okay? Or you may have a CEO who's really supposed to be the head of digital. We've been saying that for years now. All of a sudden the board doesn't believe in them. Or the CEO doesn't believe in the CIO. So I think it's incredibly important if you're in it for the positive change is to figure out who's calling the shots. And number two is what role do you play? How can you complement them? Because we've seen people get some quick promotions if they can ally with the key decision maker and complement them in some way. You got to be able to know who owns the change, and it's not obvious. It may not be the CEO, maybe one of the independent board members. Okay, who's really behind the change, and what role can you uniquely add to that person?
And so typically, you talk about pairing both the leader and the manager, right? The leader and the coach.
Yeah, frankly, I'd love to get some thoughts from Renee, Tony, and Mark on this, which is who really is the decision maker when there's a large organization, they're trying to go through change, and all of a sudden there's a call for a new CIO or a digital officer or whatever. What are you all finding that's helpful to the audience in terms of who's really behind this? Is it the CEO? Is it an independent board member? I have just found there's just been a lot of it's changed. It may have been something different a few months ago, but there's a lot of power struggles at the top on who's really determining. United Airlines right now. Who's really deciding where United is going to spend the money?
Okay.
Is it
Tony?
Hunter, look, it's a great question. And we typically get a call from a CEO or a head of HR to look at a top technology position. And it's invariably the CEO who's perhaps lost faith, or the CEO has tasked somebody with moving the organization forward and they have not succeeded, or they're unable to create a vision, or they were caught unprepared. So, this COVID thing has been fascinating because sort of heroes and villains have emerged in this process. I think if you were a CIO who perhaps started the journey and work from home happened and you were able to pivot, move really quickly, you demonstrated what I term adaptive resilience. You were able to lead, you were able to make those tough choices, you were caring for your team, you had an open ear to what was happening within the organization, but you also demonstrated some vulnerability and humility, not to be arrogant about here's the solution, you were open. Then you were probably a hero. You were probably a villain if you said, yeah, I got this, no problem, and then you didn't get it, and there was a huge problem. And we are augmenting teams where there is a hero, and we are perhaps replacing leaders where there's a villain in place. Now, who's driving that? It should be, in my opinion, the CEO, because the CEO is, as David pointed out, the chief digital officer, because digital is just how we're going to do business into the future. So that's really the CEO. And if the CIO or the chief information and digital or chief digital officer, as named, is not executing appropriately, then that's a problem. But the CEO in turn needs to have brought his board along. And that opens up a huge can of worms. Is that whole thrust being driven by the board? Is it being driven by the CEO? Does the CEO and the nominating and governance committee need to add to the board different perspectives and deeper understanding of what this entails? There's just a ton of dynamics and moving parts in this whole equation that I'm sure Renee and Mark can add to. I'm just talking about first things that come to mind. I'd love to hear what they have to say.
Excellent, Tony. Thanks, Renee.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I agree, Tony, with what you've said. David, it is a fascinating question. I kind of want to pull on the thread that Mark raised earlier, which is around what did you do in the battle, right? I think this is a time when if you want to extend the war metaphor, we will see battlefield promotions. And it may not necessarily be based on the same criteria that it would have been under normal circumstances. David, to your point, it might just be the person who happened to be in the right room with the right guy and said something smart They may not really be all that qualified for that promotion, but because they were there and made the right kind of impression, they'll get that job and move on, right? So I do feel like it's very fluid. And I agree with what Tony said. We're called by boards, by CEOs, by CIOs who need to fill their team out, by, you know, all kinds of leaders. But this is a time that you have to demonstrate that you are genuine, that you have intellectual agility, and that you've got some kind of political savvy without necessarily being political. So that's what we're seeing.
Thanks, Renee. Brilliant. Mark?
Just briefly, to the part of David's question about where does it come from, it can come from anywhere. It can come from the head of marketing and sales who says, you know, I'm not getting the data I need from IT. Or it can come from the finance department and saying, hey, I'm not getting my numbers fast enough. Or the board can just say, hey, I read something in the magazine yesterday. Are we doing this? And other cliches. But ultimately, it comes from the CEO, delivered directly by the CEO or delivered through the CHRO. What's more important is what's going on and why are we getting calls even today when you think, well, maybe the market's just kind of hunkered down. And it was for all of April, May, and a lot of June, but it's come back now. But why is it coming back? The reason it's coming back is because change, because challenging times, because crises put a magnifying glass on everyone, especially technology, because of the work from home, because of the ability to access and keep data private and secure, and a host of other things. But what happens here is the flaws as well as the pros and the cons of IT just get magnified by the crisis. So organizations are extra sensitive to, do we have the right person in that seat?
So what you're suggesting is this digital trend that we're in, Mark, is going to steepen and accelerate.
Yeah, that's not as new as it sounds. It's been new for a whole bunch of years. I'm saying that because digital transformation has accelerated by the what's the expression? Necessity is the mother of invention. Because necessity has mandated change and more rapid change, it's got to also mandate excellence in the CIO role.
Excellent. Yep, agreed. Hey, David, back to you. Did we get your complete answer to that question? That was good research.
Yeah, no, really, and I'm with you, Mark, 100%. It could come from any of those places. I think the thing that I would put out there for everyone is make sure you're clear where it comes from. You know, I have empathy for Deb, what she had shared earlier with what she's doing at the hospital. We're involved in a number of hospital projects. The reality is here you are, Deb, working really hard to develop this app, and knowing who's really behind it. Who is the ultimate air cover? Who is the ultimate owner and authorizer of that change? To Mark's point, it could be anyone. It is essential you know who it is, and it is essential that you understand what your brand is to that person. What role do you play? Are you their trusted advisor? Are you a sounding board? Are you the ideator? Are you somebody that takes their ideas and puts it into a plan? I think this is so important. You know, I'll leave with this thought, which is Hollywood. You know, it always amazed me with Hollywood how well organized it is in these roles. You know, are you the director? Are you the producer? Are you the star of the show? But it's based on talent. It's based on what the talent you have for that role is. We all need to look in the mirror and understand, what is our genius? What is the role we play in change? And how do we make sure that we are known for that by the person who ultimately is the decision maker?
Excellent, David. But you would say also at Hyper, you help top executive leaders ensure and drive massive change initiatives that are wrapped around technology initiatives, correct?
It is, and what we get brought in when there's one of these big technology projects, but the first thing we do when we sit down with them is we say, what is the change initiative? What's the Super Bowl win? Okay, and who ultimately is your air cover? And Hunter, there's been too many examples, even with CEOs we're working with, very high profile ones, where a board member shows up the next day and they don't like the way it's going because it's not consistent with what they're reading about, to use Mark's example, and boom, your CEO is fired. So now you have a CIO who spent 5 years behind the CEO. CIO, 5 years working for a CEO who immediately is displaced because a new board member doesn't like what they see. Okay, if you're that CIO, if you're Deb working really hard on this app, make sure you know who really is calling the shots. Otherwise, we're going to spin our wheels.
I love it. It's a long-range viewpoint. Great insights. Thank you, David. Great point of view. You know, final closing comments to this session. Renee, I always like to say this, but what's your take on it? Best time ever to be in technology and to lean in?
No doubt. Others have said this, but I really agree. I think it might have been Tony that said, you know, the CIO and the CTOs are the leaders who are stepping up right now that might actually save the company, right? And so what a time for you to put all of your skills, your experiences, your personality on display and really be able to impact positively your organization.
Excellent. Thanks, Renee, for coming on the program. Tony?
COVID has sped up the digital agenda. The wonderful piece that's come along with it is it's also sped up the leadership agenda. I think that the leadership style, the way you do your work, the way you communicate, and the complexity of the issues you face is now absolutely huge. Nancy brought up a point which we haven't dug into in detail, which is, what's happened because of, Amy Cooper, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protests. There's an added element to leading within a very complex world at a higher rate of change. So I love the leadership change agenda that's gone along with the digital change agenda.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony. Great to see you again. Mark, final word?
Final word. If you're working in an organization today that is not taking advantage of opportunities to accelerate through the turn, some of the best competitive moves of all kinds of companies are made in times like these. If you're working for a company that's not prepared to take advantage of the situation and improve, then perhaps it's time to look around. Or we'll find you anyway, because we have a lot of clients that are aggressively learning to lean in and speed up through the curve. But be prepared, whether you're looking or you're not looking, be prepared. Keep your resume up to date. Keep your electronic resume, i.e. LinkedIn, up to date. There's a lot being written about what works and what doesn't work, both on paper and online. Pay attention. That stuff is real. And take calls. And if it's something that you're not interested in, be polite enough to listen and maybe make a recommendation or two, and we'll call you again.
Hey, Mark, thanks for coming on the program and your engagement and support over the years. Renee, great to see you. Thank you. David, always good to see you, my friend. And Tony, awesome job.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
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 Next up is Securing the Future of Work. My dear friend and partner Rocco Grillo is the Managing Director of Global Cyber Risk Services at Alvarez & Marsal. Rocco, great to see you. Take it away.
My pleasure. Thanks again, Hunter and the HMG team, for having me again. It's always exciting and listening to all the expertise you bring to the table. To that end, Hunter, I'm going to steal one of your lines. We've got a rock star panel here today across different industries, and especially with Tanal jumping in on it, maybe give us some of what's going on in the cyber terrorism world. But just real quick, a quick overview on the session that we've put together, Securing the Future of Work. Been fortunate to do a number of these with Hunter across the country, but who could have predicted this and everything that we've seen across the board today, what the presenters have brought across. For myself personally, I've helped companies respond to some of the largest cyber attacks in the last 10 plus years. But even what we've seen in the last 6 months in the middle of this COVID pandemic, ransomware spiking, business email compromises, even attacks now that we're looking at, the larger third-party service providers that house some of the largest companies in the world. Phishing attacks, and where do we go with that? The proverbial click on a link. And of course, we can't forget the nation states I mentioned with Sanal, but even down into, as we spoke earlier about some of the vaccines that are being developed, looking at Japan and China that are targeting some of the vaccines that are out there. So there's cyber attacks, cyber risks, exposures across the board. With that, I want to hand off to our esteemed panelists. I'll start off with Raj. If you could give us a little bit on your background as well as your thoughts on the panel today. Over to you, Raj.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Rocco.
No worries.
Happy to be here. Raj Padwar, Global CISO at Voya Financial. We are a New York City-based financial services company. I've been in the security space for a long time, 25 years and change. And prior to my work at Voya Financial, I was at AIG, leading security there, and BAE and Bank of America before that. And I came up the food chain with the whole Netscape and AOL group of companies. And so happy to be here and look forward to talking further with Snehal and with Lakshmi.
Great. Thanks, Raj. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Raj. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Lakshmi Hanspal, Global CISO for Box, and really happy to be here. A lot of great thoughts I think are going to come, and I've heard a lot of great messages over the course of the previous discussions as well. Looking forward to learning from the panel. Been in this space for, like Raj said, more than 2 decades, but it seems to be one that is two things. It's like Hotel California, you check in and you never check out. And 2, never a dull moment.
Over to you, Sanal.
Thanks, Rocco and team. Pleasure to speak to everyone today. My name is Snehal Antani. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Horizon3.ai. My background, I was a CIO at GE Capital. I was a CTO at Splunk. I do some work in support of national security in the Department of Defense and Special Operations. And now I'm checking the box for entrepreneur.
Great. All right. Well, I know we've got a lot of ground to cover and a lot of great input. With all the different backgrounds we have here, I'm going to jump into the financial services world. Raj, I mean, there's so much going on, and we talk about cyber attacks, we talk about fraud and different types of things that are going on, but also innovation that's going on. What are some of the things that you've seen in the financial services space, especially given your background and what your role is as the CISO over at Voya?
Right. I'm going to be generic about the financial services industry, right? So even given on a conservative scale, right, we've seen about like a 40% increase in cyber attacks, and including but not limited to hacking and breaches and stuff like that. You've seen about a 200% increase in phishing and spam and spoofing type of situations and emails, right, for many financial institutions. And also what we've noticed is a bunch of, like fraudulent solicitations, IRS scams, investment scams that are going on that have been sending out emails, for disease cure, for COVID and otherwise. So, and obviously, we all feel, the heat or a bit of the brunt from the regulatory perspective, because we feel that there is a bit of an exposure, for the financial institutions from the regulators, because the regulators are not going to say that, everybody's working from home and you guys have been attacked and this and that. So we will give you a pass on the regulatory requirements that you have, right? So certainly we are making sure that, we comply with those, we understand the risk, we do the assessment. So I think that's in a nutshell what we have seen in the financial services world.
Great, thanks for that, Raj. And, flipping over to you, Lakshmi, with, being at Box, Silicon Valley, and, digital transformation, evolving technologies, what are some of the boundaries that you think, especially with the employees being at home, but at the same time, needing to work at 100%, in some instances, companies looking at them as if they're going to work over 100%. Any thoughts? It feels like the boundaries have really extended, and that's an understatement for sure.
Right, Rocco. And I think the term boundaries is sort of multifaceted in that. So we have the boundaries of the corporate network, then we have the boundaries of trust, and then we have boundaries of productivity. And, the way I see it, securing remote work isn't just a technology issue. In this digital era that we operate in, security is built on layers of trust. And that is underpinned by the way people engage with technology. So today, when you think about trusted and untrusted devices being the source or channels of access, partnerships that have expanded, not just in the challenging situations that we're in today, but as part of larger business roadmap purposes as well. So those are boundaries of partnership that have expanded. Clearly, all of this is testing, putting pressure on the layers of trust and security and compliance that we have. So this is not a new phenomenon, but it is a amplified phenomena right now for us. And I think this is one that will continue to stay.
Great. No, appreciate the input there. And, as much as we've spoken about the attacks and malicious activities going on, our most critical assets are one of our biggest assets, our Achilles heel, the employees, and what are the right controls to have in place. You look at some of the things that you're doing from your background. If you look at where you've spanned from GE to on the Splunk side, trying to help put countermeasures in place, this whole idea of the insider threat, all too often that topic may sound, we're looking at an attacker or someone doing something wrong, but what can we do from an insider threat standpoint?
Yeah, Rocco, it's a great question. So I think that there are two realities that are made worse by COVID and work from home. The first is attackers don't hack in, they log in. They know your credentials. They are harvesting and gathering those credentials. They are chaining together misconfigurations and vulnerabilities and are actively seeking data worth stealing and systems worth disrupting. So it's not some use of 0 days and whatnot to get in. They're just logging in with valid credentials that belong to you or your administrator or even your CEO. The second issue is security operations teams are already overwhelmed with alerts and monitors and so on, and they're struggling to find, prioritize, and fix problems that actually matter. And both of those dynamics existed pre-COVID. Post-COVID, it's even worse. With work from home, password weakness and password reuse oftentimes becomes more significant. What you use to log into your home router is probably going to be the same password you're going to use to log into work, and so on and so forth. And so your personal cyber hygiene and your professional cyber hygiene are rapidly converging. That's in addition to companies that had to rapidly issue and put out remote kits for you to be able to work from home and other facilities. And then also all of the algorithms that you built on the back end using a variety of products for insider threat and so on. Those algorithms on the defensive side were tuned for your corporate user and corporate behavior. None of those algorithms necessarily work based on the new profile of people logging in remotely. So all those algorithms have to relearn and retune, adding even more workload to the defenders. And so I think what we have is a fundamental challenge with security teams that are under budget pressure. They're not going to necessarily be able to hire, whose environments have rapidly changed on them, all of which creates chaos. And what's the quote? Chaos is a ladder, right? We're starting to see a number of new, very low-hanging fruit, simple ways to attack and get data, and it's only going to get worse.
Fantastic. Appreciate the input there. We heard from some great CIOs, CTOs, and chief digital officers earlier, and kudos to the companies out there, the industry at large, how we went from working in corporate environments to work from home, work from anywhere in the blink of an eye. But as much as we did that with the flip of the switch, I enjoy being able to do these panels with the CISO community, because as much as a lot of times the CIOs, the chief digital officers, and the list goes on in IT are going through the heroics to get our employees out there and working, sometimes there may be controls that may be overlooked, or at the same time, what are different techniques that need to be put in place. And Raj, when we were prepping for this, you've seen a lot through your career and just at the industry at large. what are some of the techniques, and even further, not necessarily blind spots, but what are things that companies, their end employees, should be doing to enable secure remote working?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's a loaded question and long answer, but I'll try to go as fast as possible. But primarily, as I think was referenced here, right? Technology is something that is enabling this secure work from home, right? And obviously, it's not just technology that we have to secure, but the two primary technologies are like VPN and VDI, which is what most of the world is at the moment using. And then there is also the digital collaboration platforms, right? Like Zoom, this one, there's Skype and Teams and WebEx and others. All of them have had some problems, right? They've had some exploits and vulnerabilities crop up. And like Zoom has had Zoom bombing and other problems, end-to-end encryption issues, right? So for us to make sure that our users, our employees, and our customers, if they are using our platforms, are indeed doing this work securely, there are a few guidelines that I like to give, and I'm going to go really fast. One thing is they got to make sure that the connectivity that they have at the network, right? They need to have a secure network. They need to ensure that. So connectivity for VPN or for VDI needs to be secure, needs to be end-to-end fully encrypted, right? Secondly, they need to really start thinking about the zero trust implementation model. And zero trust is a loaded word and it's not a panacea, but I think that if you move towards application segmentation, network micro-segmentation, better management of your identities, then you could get to that zero trust paradigm. So companies need to start thinking of this as we are all in this whole work from home situation, right? Also, they need to think about closing these so-called side doors. So lots of them exist. For example, companies should think about disabling split tunneling or dual homing, right? We need to have visibility at the endpoint. So make sure that they have like EDR capabilities available or DLP is advanced, or if they have, for all their SaaS implementations, if they have a CASB type of implementation in place. They really need to also start focusing a lot more on advanced monitoring, right? So ensuring that when the employees or associates, whether they're onshore or offshore or whenever they are connecting to a company proxy. So whether they're using the company network, VPN or otherwise, or if they're using their private network, the one that they get from their cable provider, their ISP, they should be hitting a company proxy first before they go wherever they go. So the security teams can get some visibility into that. This construct can also be achieved by using an always VPN type of a paradigm. One other thing I'm going to talk about is that we all need to start doing better dark web monitoring, because a lot of the time when all this unauthorized access occurs, credentials are stolen, exfiltration of data occurs, a lot of it ends up on the dark web. So we need to start doing our own monitoring rather than relying on third parties or vendors. So all of us needs to bolster our dark web monitoring capabilities. We really need to manage our BYOD better, right? So device-based authentication is something that we all need to think about, is that when our device is connecting, it actually needs to authenticate. So there either needs to be a certificate or a token at the device that it authenticates into the network before it is allowed access. Similarly, endpoint controls, we need to make sure that we have, like visibility with EDR, dynamic whitelisting capability, so that any software, EXE or otherwise, needs to be whitelisted before it can actually run on an endpoint. And last but not the least, we need to make sure we have a good data security paradigm. Digital rights management is the way to go for structured and primarily unstructured data. So these are some of the controls that I mentioned, and hopefully, that was a mouthful, by the way, but hopefully that will provide some guidance to folks that are looking at it. Back to you.
Well, kudos to you. I gave you a loaded question and you gave me more than I could handle, trying to take some of these down. So thanks for that, Raj. I know we just had our executive recruiter panel, and in doing some of these with HMG, it's you've always heard them talk about being board ready and things of that nature. And Lakshmi, I know you being in your role, given what Box does, and whether it's securing the organization and even dealing with customers, clients, whatever you like to call them, but to the point of being board ready. If you weren't board ready now before the pandemic, this sure thrusts you into the light. How have you handled some of the discussions with the board, business executives, even not to go too far externally, but just overall, having that business conversation of what we're in the middle of here?
Right, and I think it starts with saying that we, the conversations have been pretty structured in the past and they continue to be, perhaps the focus or the amplification of discussion may linger on certain areas. And I could think of three of them. One is every CISO knows the most dreaded question, which is, are we secure? And I tend to pivot that to, secure is a binary state, right? There's 0, 1, yes, no, into are we protected, which is a continuum. So I tend to pivot that in that sense, saying, yes, I can tell you if are we protected and in what areas are we more protected than others. The second one is, what are the distractions that we need to honor today? And this could be more of an education, but it's also many of our board members are board members of other companies. So also a learning opportunity from them on what they are hearing from others. So if you think about it, social engineering has long been a primary threat vector. And we had Snehal say that the success rates of that is only getting higher with everyone's attention diverted, elsewhere. So one of the aspects is that the same people, our organizations, still want to make good decisions. So how do we enable that? How do we honor those distractions, but still empower them to make the right decisions? And so what are we doing in that aspect? And the third is, where did we need to revisit business decisions that needed adjustment either on a temporary or permanent basis? I can take an example of many of us having lost clean room facilities for our customer support agents and customer support function, right? So what does that mean in terms of what does the loss of clean room translate to business decisions on what that team can or cannot handle right now? Like, would they take a funding instrument change, like a credit card change, over the phone? Probably not, because there's the loss of secure line in some way. So I think those three aspects: are we protected? What are some of the distractions we need to acknowledge, honor, and what are we doing about it? And then the third is, where do we need to revisit some of the business decisions that we had before and to make updates to that, newer decisions, and make it apparent and transparent to impacted stakeholders. Those have been primarily some of the focus areas within our supervisory board or partners. But it comes down to two things. One is, are we acting as a practitioner and partner first before a provider? And it is more so important now in today's scenario than I guess anywhere else it has been in our industrial lifetime.
Great points and great advice. Thanks for that, Lakshmi. Snehal, even on that topic, I think some of the pieces that we saw, most companies, if not everyone in the industry, tried to mobilize our workforce, stabilize the infrastructure, and now we're at that point where we're 6 months plus, longer than that when you look at this globally, but really from the U.S. standpoint. Where do we go from here? I mean, there's so many different technologies that companies are trying to embrace, artificial intelligence, things of that nature. Can you give us some of your thoughts, input on that, especially the things that you've done along the way?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the guidance I get from a variety of government parties I work with is expect this to go on until at least middle of next year, from a restriction in travel and other things like that. So this is not a short blip. This is a change in our way of life. And I think to Lakshmi's point of that dreaded question, are we secure? My frustration when I was a CIO and dealing with aspects of the financial crisis and beyond, and all the way up until my time at Splunk and my time in government, is I felt tools rich, but I felt capabilities poor. I had no idea if all of the products that I had bought and used actually worked. I had no idea if we were actually getting better, and I didn't truly understand the seams and blind spots that existed between my tools, my processes, my talent, and beyond. And so the question is going to be, if this is not just a sudden change in behavior in terms of COVID or not, but this is a fundamental shift in way of life, how do we compound the sudden change in how we operate with all of the technical debt and security debt that we've been accruing over time, and how do we move out as security leaders in a way that's actually going to make progress and improve our posture? Because we might have a strategy and a plan, and the quote, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. We all have strategies to get to zero trust, as Raj mentioned, and doing other things. But if we get breached tonight, that strategy or plan doesn't matter. The board doesn't care what your posture is going to look like in 3 years. We just got breached. What are we going to do about it? So I think cadence and op tempo is going to be even more important. What is your daily security stand-up as a leader, or your weekly security stand-up? And how does that have a bias for action, while at the same time, you've got a longer-term annual campaign plan that's creating a bias for understanding and a bias for strategic improvement. And I think we're going to see this companies that successfully navigate through this are going to have this 2-speed cadence in how they run security operations.
Great, thanks for that. I know we're at the top of our time. Raj and Lakshmi, a couple quick closing thoughts, one from each of you, and we'll just wrap it up.
I think one closing thought I can start off with is that all good points raised here by the panel here. One thing I can stress enough also is that we all need to make sure that, the human is the weakest link in this ecosystem, right? So we need to focus a lot more as security technologists on training and communications to make sure that our workforce, our employees, and even our customers and clients are actually educated enough to detect the security threats that exist out there, right? So we got to communicate a lot. We got to do our training and communications, and we have to do it in a continuous manner. It can't be just once in a blue moon, right? Once a quarter, check the box. It can't be that. It has to be more often. We have to make sure that it happens on a frequent basis, and it becomes, part of how they work. So that's the message I will leave you with.
Great, thank you, Raj. Lakshmi, send us home.
And sort of connecting with what Raj said with the human element is that we live in an imperfect world, and the way to build trust is to listen, learn, and lead with empathy. And we might all be wondering, why does this matter to secure remote work? Is that because it creates a work environment that empowers people to feel invested in the company's success. And I can say, Rocco, that is a trust-based security posture that money can't buy.
All great points, invaluable. Hunter, over to you.
Hey, Rocco, great job. Lakshmi, so great to see you. Raj, thank you so much. Snehal, always great to see you, my friend. Great session, folks. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Hunter.
Okay, next up, we have the HMG Top Tech Executive Leaders That Matters Recognition Program. And I believe we have a slide we're going to pull up. First up is Nancy Flores. The HMG team is going to pull up a slide here, I believe. Okay. Hey, Nancy, great to see you again. Hello. And, it blows me away. 22 years at Abbott, right?
Yes.
You worked your way up through one of the top companies, pharma companies in the world. You rose to a global CIO role, and then you landed at McKesson, and you have such an amazing background. It's said that you're a compassionate leader, forward-thinking and not afraid to offer revolutionary ideas and reinvent the thinking of the company. You serve on the Children's Hospitals of Wisconsin board, and been recognized in the past as a futurist with a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion. And at McKesson, you're obviously very much so driving the strategic direction at a corporate level. I mean, what a big job, right? And I mean, it gives me so much pride and excitement to recognize you as one of the 2020, 2021 HMG Top Tech Execs That Matter award here today. What are your thoughts about your career and now at McKesson, your leadership style in terms of your team? How important the people on your team are?
Oh, wow. Well, to answer that first, they're critically important. I think I like to think about my career as a reflection of everybody who was successful in my organization. You know, I didn't get here by myself. I felt my role was to help clear a path for those that were smarter than me, brighter than me, had better ideas than me. And I've always been blessed with being able to be around very talented people that once we've come together to understand what we have to achieve, we were able to do some amazing things. When you think about my career, I've had the opportunity to work for companies that always had challenges and complexities. And so every opportunity, I tended to end up in areas that needed to be fixed, and we all have experiences where we weren't aligned with the businesses or we had a failed projects. Those are the elements to me that I think got me to where I am, is taking on the difficult challenges. And I think the one final thing I would say is, what's my leadership style? I will tell it through a story. I was nervous. Somebody had asked a question of one of my leaders and said, you know, what's it like to work for Nancy? That brings a lot of anxiety when it's live. But he essentially said, she's like a coach and you're training for a marathon. There are days where you love training, you want to achieve that goal, and you have a great workout. There are other days you come in, you don't have such a great workout. There are other days you don't even want to go and work out. But when you run the race and you win the marathon, you're back there the next day, ready to do it again. So I'm not sure what that says about my leadership style, but I'm just very grateful for all of those that have helped me with my career. And I hope over time we've been able to create great value for the companies that I've worked for.
Excellent. Well, you now join an exclusive group of some 100 to 200 IT leaders that have been recognized over 12 years by us. So again, it gives me great pleasure. I hope to do this again soon in person in 2021.
Great. Thank you, Hunter. Thank you, everybody.
We're going to, awesome job, Nancy. We're going to run a short video clip of both Nancy Flores, Paul Phipps, who will be recognized in the video, Nicole Egan of Darktrace, and Marcus Fowler of Darktrace.
It is an honor to accept this award on behalf of myself and Nicole Egan, recognizing the Darktrace technical teams from product development to internal networks. They not only allow us to perform as a company and build an amazing product that is securing dozens of industries and thousands of companies. Their drive to innovate ensures we are securing companies wherever their digital journey is taking them. Thank you, HMG, for the community you've created and this outstanding recognition.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of McKesson and the McKesson Technology Leadership Team, I want to thank you for this award. It's a privilege and honor, and we're so excited to be recognized amongst our technology peers. As you know, an award like this doesn't come without a lot of hard work and effort, and I want to take this moment to thank the leadership team at McKesson Technology and each and every individual in the McKesson Technology organization who, in a year where history is in the making on many fronts, were able to navigate uncertainty, address many different challenges and new ways of working, and had to flawlessly execute to make sure critical healthcare products and PPE were delivered to some of the most critical areas of our healthcare systems across the US, Canada, and Europe.
Hello, HMG. On behalf of the entire Under Armour team, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for recognizing all the hard work happening here at Under Armour as we focus on our consumers during these difficult times and beyond. As you know, any leadership award is all about the team, the team, the team. And I can honestly say that I'm incredibly proud of the team that I'm privileged every single day to work on. It is the best team I've ever had, the honor to work side by side in my entire career. So all the credit goes to the team. We're proud, we're humbled, we're thrilled that an organization with as much influence as HMG across global industries in technology and disruption would honor and recognize our hard work and efforts. Thank you very much, and we certainly look forward to what's to come. Thanks so much.
Excellent. So why don't we bring Paul Phipps out? Paul, good to see you. Seamless video. Love the production.
I'm back, Hunter. Back. Yeah.
Love the production of the video. Great job. You know, it does give me a lot of pride and exciting to be able to recognize folks like people like yourself. I mean, you've been such a supporter for going on probably 6-8 years of the HMG platform and model, and you always blow me away with your clarity and the way you see business, technology, and the way you lead and your communication style is truly top notch.
Well, I mean, thank you again. We're really humbled to be recognized for this honor, and I really do believe the team. You know, Nancy had some great words around leadership style. I think for me, you know, I served in the military very early in my life, and I think really helped me develop my leadership philosophy, which was, you know, company and mission first, team second, and self third. And I think if you keep those three in order, things tend to work out.
That is fascinating. I didn't even know that about.
Yes.
How long and where'd you serve?
I served in the 82nd Airborne Division. So I was active duty for 2.5 years in Fort Bragg, and then 5.5 years in the National Guard.
Awesome. Great job.
Yeah.
Paul, we look forward to shipping the trophy to you and seeing you again at another virtual summit and certainly in person in 2021. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you very much, Hunter.
Great job. And finally, Marcus Fowler. Marcus is with, of course, with Darktrace and is the Director of Strategic Threat. Marcus, welcome to the program. You also have a military background.
That's exactly true, Hunter. Yeah, I served in the Marine Corps for 5 years, and then after that, I did 15 years at the CIA before joining Darktrace a little more than a year ago.
Awesome. So look, a big thanks to both you and Nicole. You were instrumental in being a founding partner of the HMG Marketplace, which I'm really thrilled, excited about, a 5-year vision that we pulled off in the past 5 months. And your background really is kind of amazing. A little bit about your leadership style in our industry and at Darktrace.
Sure. And I'll take it from kind of where I was at the CIA, where I was really kind of a leadership style of mission first, people always, where you're looking out and you have that all moving towards the same goal, but you're really looking out for their well-being and where they're going and providing that commander's intent towards mission. And I've actually found as I've transitioned into the private sector and I'm working at a great company like Darktrace, I began to really pull on the strengths of communication, consensus building, and collaboration, and kind of building on all those different areas to move towards success. Because you have a lot of different parts of any organization that, especially from the security standpoint, you really need to do that collaboration building in order to prioritize the security apparatus and kind of where the company's headed.
Excellent. You know, some things about you that people might not know is that you have a really calculated and analytical leadership style. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's almost calculated in terms of like, what does that person need to succeed, right? It's more or less of a leader. I really believe in tailoring one's leadership style to the individual. And you can have your basic kind of tenets of leadership, but I think really bringing and really resonating with any individual, whether it's in a mentor relationship or in a seniority peer, even that, like really tailoring that engagement to what they need, because there's so much diversity within our workforce that it's hard to kind of use the same leadership template with all of them.
Gotcha. Well, and congratulations on receiving this recognition. Again, the trophy will be sent to you. Would love to have you again more on digital summits as well as in person in 2021. A little bit about Nicole. Nicole's really quite exceptional, right? As CEO of Darktrace, Nicole drove an organizational growth up to November 2019, 4-year growth of over 2,000%, right? She's now moved over into a new role. I know she's passionate about Darktrace's unique enterprise immune system. What is the immune system all about?
Sure. I mean, really the entire premise is much like your human body's immune system. In order to defend, if I understand what is normal for you in your digital environment, I can stop any attack, no matter what signature it uses, whether it's a 0-day, a nation state, insider threat, I'm going to identify it and be able to disrupt it. And it's really kind of moving that threat optic from focusing on the threat actor to understanding and enforcing your own environment. And again, to your point about Nicole's outstanding background, really someone that I've learned a ton about over the last year is really being able to kind of shadow her in a number of different things and trying to see how she's driving the culture and the leadership within and across Darktrace as a whole.
A unique culture, right? Exactly right. Almost a 50% split of male and female employees were in an industry where basically it's made up of only 20% of women.
That's right. I mean, I think, and you're always on the HMG kind of conversations talking about the importance of diversity, the importance of really seizing, especially today's moment, to be very kind of self-critical, or are we doing enough to be as diverse and as inclusive as possible? And so I think, while I know we're doing well, we always know we can do better.
You know, she's got a slogan saying, do not abuse your relaxation time. When you have time to take a break, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it always thinks about the importance of kind of sharpening the axe, right? You know, you're going to cut more wood with a sharp axe than rather hacking away. So take the time when you can get the time, and then get right back to the fight when you can. And I think that that's key in terms of, especially at this work from home, it's almost hard to say, how do I take time when there's really nowhere I can go? But just taking that your own personal time to have a little reflection is really going to make you a stronger leader. And it's also going to set the tone for those around you that they too can take a pause to come back stronger.
That's right. Well said. Send my best to Nicole and congratulate her as well. I'm sure we'll be seeing her again soon at an upcoming summit. Congratulations to you as well, and to Darktrace's success. Again, thanks for your support.
Oh, thank you, Hunter. It's a fantastic honor. I love interacting with the HMG community. Every time I go on with these, I'm like, all right, need to follow that person on LinkedIn. Need to go find that person, right? Because they just a lot of great thought leadership in their own space, but in really leadership and business more broadly. And it's a really powerful network that you've grown.
Thanks. I love what I do, and it's a passion for sure. So stay in touch, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again.
You bet.
So that wraps up another great summit. Sorry for the technical glitch there. Hopefully it didn't affect you too much throughout the program. Brilliant summit, world-class thought leadership. I think no one else is really quite following and tracking the thought leadership and research focus that HMG focuses on regarding leading, innovating, disrupting, reimagining, and reinventing that customer journey, and reimagining and reinventing business models and go-to-market and career, as you heard from our search panel. Big shout out to all the presenters today. Thank you very much. And to our partners, Commvault, Globant, Zerto, and DataStax. Thanks so much. We couldn't do what we do without you. Please visit them and get connected. We'll see you again soon. Stay in touch, and looking forward to our next summit.